Hello, welcome to Belle's Library. I'm Heather, and we are back for part 2 of my summer book recommendations for you guys. This time around, we're going to be talking about some thrillers and mysteries that I think would be super fun to read this year during the summer. So, before we get started, of course, get down below and subscribe. And if you guys want to check out my Instagram and Goodreads, I also will have those linked down below for you guys. This video, if you guys haven't seen part 1, I did romance and contemporaries that were summer book recommendation ideas, and so I will put that up top and down below for you guys as well. And this is part 2, and again, it's going to be about mostly thrillers, and I think like 1 or 2 of them are more mystery type books, because I don't know, those are kind of fun to read in the summer too, right? You're just like, I want just something fast and fun to just sit down and read and get through, and you know, why not pick up a mystery or thriller? I don't know, I think these would be great. And then there is going to be a part 3 coming up soon, and that will be some fantasies that I think would be really fun to read during the summer. So be on the lookout for that one. And again, if you subscribe, then, you know, there you go. It's going to come up in your feed for you. So let's go ahead and jump in with the first book. I have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager here, and this is a really fun haunted house type of book, and we are following actually from 2 different perspectives. We have Maggie, and her dad just passed away, and she inherited this old house of his, and so we're following from her perspective. She's going to go back to the house, and they stayed in the house I think for only like a few months when she was a kid, and then they left in the middle of the night and never came back, and like basically was believed to be haunted. And her dad wrote a book on their experience in the box. Her dad wrote a book about their experience inside of this house and how it was haunted, and throughout her whole life, like, her parents still said, nope, that house is haunted, and they wouldn't tell her the truth. She's like, it's not haunted. But her dad really did not want her to go back to the house at all. He's like, you need to just, you know, she didn't even know that he still owned it, but then he ends up passing away, and she inherits it, and her mom still is like, no, don't go back, like, just sell it. Like, you don't need that in your life. And she decides, she's like, no, I'm gonna go fix this house up, and I'm gonna figure out what in the heck actually happened. So we're following some of her point of view, and then there's other chapters that are from the book that her dad wrote about their time before there, and there's a good juicy little like twist at the end. And throughout the whole thing, you're watching from before things happen that are then happening to her again, and you're like, wait, is there really like a haunted piece to this, or is there something else going on? And it's really fun, and I enjoyed this one, and so you should check it out if you like some haunted house vibes. Now, this book is one that does lean a little bit more towards that mystery element, and that's A Lat's Away by Darcy Little Badger. I just recently read this one, and I really enjoyed it. Funny thing is, though, I totally thought this was set in like a snowy environment. Like, I thought the wolves on the cover here were supposed to also look a little bit like snow. No. This is set in the desert in Texas. It's hot, it's summer, and we're trying to figure out a mystery. So in A Lat's Away's America, things are very, very, very similar to the America that we have, but there are some slight differences in that certain people have some magical abilities. So there's a little bit of some magical realism. In A Lat's Away, a lot of the women, I think it's mostly the women in her family, it might be the men too, but they can speak to the dead after they've gone. Particularly, they usually call on animals because humans are very fickle, and so they try not to deal with any of that. And so her cousin ends up getting into an accident, and on the night that he's at the hospital and he's passing away, she ends up getting a dream from him, and he's like, this was not an accident, you need to go look into this. And so she wakes up and tells her parents, and so they all take off to where the cousin lived, and they're trying to figure out what happened and solve the mystery. So that's what this is about. Definitely very much enjoyed the writing style of this. It's very beautifully written. So there's also, A Lat's Away is Lipan Apache, and so she brings in some of her culture with that as well, and some of her experiences that she has being a member of the Apache, and also like some really cool stories about her 6th great grandma who used her gifts to help others, and so I really enjoyed that piece of this story as well. Another book that I read recently was She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd, and this is a YA thriller, and we are following 3 different people, and mostly it's these 2 girls, and they meet and they're instantly like intrigued by each other, and so we've got a little bit of a romance happening between the 2 of them, but they're also friends with this other male character, and he does these art installments, and they go along to help him, and they're supposed to be making like a political point, and things start to go the wrong direction, and there's like a fire and some other stuff going on, and people going down the wrong path. This book's definitely kind of hard to explain, but I really enjoyed the ending and the way that things were kind of wrapped up, but they weren't like fully wrapped up. There was like a piece of it that was a little unbelievable to me, but you definitely have those characters that you're questioning the whole time, to where you're just like, I don't know which of you I actually trust or believe, or like, I don't know your motives, and you're just kind of like, I don't know, you know. So there's that element to it, which is kind of fun. I enjoy kind of that morally gray kind of area, and not really knowing who to trust. So that was interesting, and I definitely, I think the ending had an interesting and unique little twist to it. The next one we're going to talk about has an element that I feel like is so summery to me. Like, if it's got a road trip in it, summer, like that just is summer to me. So He Started It by Samantha Downing is a road trip book. We have these siblings, 3 of them, and their spouses. They have to go on this road trip across the United States because their grandpa said, you are not going to get my inheritance unless you redo this road trip that we did when you were kids. And they don't really talk to each other or get along, and so lots of family secrets are coming out on this road trip, and none of these people are good people, but there were some twists and turns along the way, and I was just like, what? And I'm like rooting for people. I remember rooting for people through this thing. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of like, I want you. And then I'd be thinking, I'm like, these are all awful people. Why am I rooting for any of them? And I was just like, what is wrong with me? So it was a really fun ride, and the road trip aspect, and you just feel like you're just stuck in this hot car with them and going across the country, and it just feels like summer, and I don't know. And so I think that one would be a really good summer one. I also just feel the summer vibes with Sadie by by Courtney Summers, and this one, oh my gosh, audiobook for this one is phenomenal, by the way. I think I read almost the whole thing in audiobook form because I was just enjoying it so much, but it has this really cool podcast element to it, and I think that's where, you know, those vibes are just, they're so good in audiobook. Anyways, we have a couple different perspectives we're following here. We have the perspective of Sadie, and her little sister ends up getting murdered, and it's like a year after the death, and nobody's done anything, and she knows who did it, and she's just like, I'm gonna go find this person, and I know what's going on, and she's just like, I need to, you know, figure this out for my sister. Like, this is not okay. And so we're following Sadie as she's kind of going on this journey and trying to figure out the truth and, you know, take care of business. And then we have Wes, and he runs a true crime podcast, and he's trying to figure out where Sadie's at because she's missing, and nobody's heard from her or seen her. And so we're following his kind of true crime podcast, and as he's trying to interview people and put this together and figure out where Sadie went. And it is wonderful. I loved this book. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book was that, like, it felt like this could really happen and be such a real life situation that it just added so much more to this story. Like, sometimes thrillers just kind of go off on this tangent and you're like, yeah, that would never happen in real life. There's just too much twisting, turning. And I mean, there definitely were some twists in this book that were very enjoyable, but like realistic. Like, this felt like I could have really listened to this true crime podcast and listened to Sadie talking about what's happened in her life, and just like all of that seemed so plausible, which is disgusting and awful, but it was so good. Okay, so that is all the thrillers I have for you guys. I don't have as much thrillers. Thrillers aren't my favorite genre. I do tend to like more mystery side of that. But occasionally I find a few that I like, and so I would love to hear from you guys. Having seen some of the ones that I like, are there some others out there that you would recommend? I would love some recommendations back from you guys for this coming summer. Anyways, otherwise, definitely don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys super soon in my fantasy summer recommendations. Bye!